During the week, this past week, most of us had some encounter with either clients, friends, sponsees, whoever, who really needed to talk about it after last Sunday. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to finish it off in more of a, hopefully, a positive note. Even though it is like a little bit of a darker subject, it's not meant to be dark. We deal with lots of darkness here, as Peter was talking about in his prayer, that this is kind of part of our mission, right? Is to be here for people who are suffering and struggling, and for other people as well. And don't get me wrong, we appreciate people who aren't suffering, just as we do those who are. So I'm just going to recap the stats really quickly as from last week, and then we're going to move on, because I don't want to spend too much time on that. But in case you weren't here last week, the stats are pretty astounding for suicides. So there's 810,000 every year on planet Earth. So that's every 40 seconds. I was wrong last week when I said every 40 minutes. It's every 40 seconds someone takes their own life. In North America, it's every 13 minutes. So that's where I got my stats crossed up. And the reason I got them crossed up is because I don't know how to write properly. And I get that from my dad. It's like chicken scratch. We must have had a doctor in our family like years ago that just scratched like lines on paper, because I can barely read it. So those are the numbers, and obviously they speak for themselves. There is a problem, right? And part of the problem is lots of people don't know what to look for. And I don't want to shame anyone, and this came to me this week as well. Someone was talking about it, and they feel kind of ashamed they don't do more, and that's not the purpose of this. Not at all. The purpose is to help be aware and prevention. That was the whole idea behind Suicide Awareness and Prevention Day, which is September 10th, is to shed more light on the subject and make it a little bit more palatable to talk about. Because obviously it's a dark subject sometimes, but the more we keep it a secret, the darker it is. If anyone in here has ever done a step 5, then you would understand exactly what I'm saying. We're only as sick as our secrets. And the more we keep it a secret, the darker it gets, and the less people want to talk about it. Because there's no shame in it, right? There's no shame in talking about it, there's no shame in feeling that way. And of course, there's no shame if we've, maybe in our minds, not done enough for someone, right? We can't necessarily carry that. Okay, but there are some warning signs that we can look for in our friends, people we work with, whoever. And some of those warning signs are obviously, this may seem obvious, like drastic changes in mood, right? Mood swings. Now, this does not include those of you who are married and that your partner has mood swings, okay? Because that apparently is a part of marriage. I wouldn't know, but apparently that's part of the deal. Wherever Thomas went, I was trying to warn him, but he took off. But drastic mood changes. And people giving up what they love. And not just possessions, but that's a part of it. So if you have someone you know is giving away stuff that they cherish, but also giving up things they love. Sports, arts, different things that they normally would do that they're not doing, right? And this isn't something that happens like once, right? Where I say, oh, my brother, oh my gosh, he didn't go golfing this summer. I better check in with him. Right? Well, the truth is, it's over a period of time. We want to try to keep these things together. And of course, some of them are more drastic than others. If someone comes out and says, I want to die, obviously we can ask, what do you mean? Are you planning suicide? And these are very simple questions that most of us don't want to ask. And why don't we want to ask them? Sometimes we don't want to know. Because then what if they say yes? Then what are we left to do? It's very simple. So if I ask someone, and I remember being a young social work student at Mount Royal, and we were all young and afraid to be like, are you going to commit suicide? Are you talking about suicide? Because we were afraid, because what that means is now we're like connected and we're involved, right? And when we're involved, that means we're responsible for something. Now, I can't be responsible in any way, shape, or form to keep someone from doing that if they choose to do that. But I am responsible to ask some pretty simple questions. As a human being, I feel that way. And they taught us that in school, that, well, you need to ask these direct questions because you're not going to give someone the idea to do it. Matter of fact, asking the question oftentimes will derail the whole process. Okay? It can potentially save someone's life by asking them, are you thinking about suicide? You can save someone's life with one simple question. And so I find that fascinating because when I remember being young and being like, I don't want to talk about it. And then people who had been around a lot longer than me, much like in the rooms, said, well, you need to. And as a professional, it's easy to talk about it because that's part of the work that I do. But as a person, is it just as easy? And sometimes it's not, right? But the more we get connected through Facebook, Instagram, all these different things that are out there, and forgive me, I get this from my dad as well. I don't even know what like some of them are called, but there's more than that apparently. Like there's something beyond Twitter, and I don't know what it's called. Tinder? It's a T. I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff out there. It's a T, and there's something else. Not Tinder? Okay, not Tinder, something else. The two young girls in the front are laughing at Tinder like, oh my God, yeah, not Tinder. So there's so many different ways that we connect now. So what happens when we start connecting with someone who lives in, I have some friends that live in New York, right? And we connect through all kinds of different mechanisms on the internet, okay? And so one friend says, just in conversation like a chat, says, I'm done with everything. I'm overwhelmed, I'm done with everything. Now the chat goes on and all of us, and I'm just watching because I'm like, well, there's got to be people closer to him, but nobody says anything. But that's one of those key sentences when someone says it. And this person has said it a few times. So I said, okay man, like I can't ignore that anymore. So I just flat out tell him in the middle of the thing. Because I'm like, yeah, you know what, I don't want to keep a secret, that's going to kill you. Right? That's not going to help. And besides, it's in an open chat. So I tell him, like, I even look it up online in his area where I'm like, dude, you can call these numbers if you need to. And honestly, a part of me is like, I probably just lost a faux friend. Right? Like an internet friend. I don't know what you call them. You call them friends or just like, I don't know what they are. But I thought to myself, I probably just lost like a full friend. And then it occurred to me that that's okay because that person might still be alive for their real friends, right? And so these things start to make more and more sense the more I apply them in every area of my life. So we talk about the 12-step programs, whatever they may be. What's the last step? Practice these principles in all my affairs, right? Well, these are all my affairs. Now, I may have at a time scoffed at the idea that I would talk on the internet. I remember my best friend teaching me how to use like a web browser when I was like 30. And I'm like, dude, this makes no sense to me. And so of course I scoffed at the idea. But the truth is, that's the world we live in. That's the world our kids, our grandkids, our great-grandkids, our nieces, our nephews, that's the world they live in. That's how they communicate. I'm done fighting it. And mind you, I was done a little while ago, but I have to say that I'm done, so I can convince myself I'm done. So this is the world we live in. We're connected. We have the means to communicate to people all over the world, and some of them are suffering, right? And it's okay. We can't do any more than we can do, right? Obviously I can't fly to New York and be like knocking on his door and saying, hey man, I know you're in trouble, right? If that was possible, that'd be great, but first of all, it's not reasonable. What is reasonable is for me to provide him with information, right? Because that's the least I can do when someone starts opening up and saying things that set off alarms. So obviously some of the feelings are, and we get confused with this, and anyone in the room who's suffered with depression can probably relate. We get confused that depression is all about sadness, but it's not all about sadness. Sometimes it feels nothing, right? It's like a void. It's not just I feel sad, because I know lots of people who say, well, I'm not depressed, I don't feel sad. I said, yeah, but you just talked about the fact that you haven't left your house in 2 weeks. So there's something going on, right? So there's more to it than just being sad. So we try to listen for things like, I feel trapped. I feel trapped, it's never going to change. It's unbearable. I want to leave. I'm done, right? And so we talked a little bit last week about physical pain being okay to want to escape from, or emotional pain isn't okay to want to escape from. But the truth is, for anyone in here who's had chronic emotional, physical, intellectual pain, any kind of pain whatsoever, you know that it's all the same. That feeling over time of pain wearing down our ability to cope, right? Because that's what happens over time. We lose the ability to cope the way we used to. So of course, what starts happening? Well, I stop writing, I stopped seeing my friends, I stopped going for coffee, I stopped visiting my parents, I stopped doing all these different things that I normally do, right? Because I'm feeling trapped inside the pain. And it's really hard to get out of that. Sometimes harder than others. Especially when I do what we've all learned, if we're in any 12-step programs, that we've learned to not isolate. I'm my own worst enemy when I'm in that place, whether it be drinking, drugs, or otherwise, right? It's not just about that. The truth of the matter is, there's often times where it comes down to the bullet, the bottle, or the book, right? Whichever book you read. I won't say the name. It's big. It's big. But it comes down to sometimes three things, because pain goes over and over and over, and it wears down our ability to cope. Okay? So we talk about feeling hopeless or having no reason to live. When we hear things like that, it's okay to ask questions. And you don't have to have all the answers. There's something that I try to talk to new people about, whether it be professionally or otherwise, when they come to me for help. Okay? It's one of these things where I try to say, you know what, it's okay to say I don't know. I've sat there and listened, like, in different funeral homes or whatever, and I'm like, just stop. Just say you don't know, because we all know you don't know. Because when we go around in those circles, it's okay to say that. So when we ask a question, are you thinking about suicide? And they say yes. It's okay to go, well, I don't know what to do, but let's figure it out. If you don't know, right? Luckily, we're in a day and age where we're connected. I can pick up my phone right now and give you 6 phone numbers to call, if I so choose, right? Hopefully somebody will reimburse me for the data usage. But otherwise, I can do that at the drop of a hat. We can do that. We have the ability now. I don't have to pretend that I don't know, right? I can look it up. You can look it up. And if you don't have access, we can always find a way to get access. Right? Because not every situation is going to dictate that we need to do like an intervention. Right? Some situations, in terms of like calling 911 or the police information number. Okay? Sometimes we're going to just simply help someone connect. Connect to a doctor, connect to a mental health worker. And thankfully, as much as anyone who's had to be involved in the medical system in Alberta, we have a pretty good system. You can look up online any phone number you need. You can get the connections. Now, it may take some time, obviously. Hence why, if it's an emergency, we call 911. Right? And I don't worry about secrets, because secrets don't save your life. Okay? Secrets could potentially